Hello everybody. Look, this is Piers Morgan, and I've got to come straight out with something important before we get into anything else on this show. Everything I'm going to lay out for you came into my hands just over the past few hours. Someone delivered me a whole collection of papers, pictures, and witness accounts, all of it put together for court proceedings that, right up until this morning, were locked down tight under a very serious confidentiality order. That order has been violated now, and what those files contain is genuinely shocking. We're looking at formal official documents here. We're looking at statements people made while sworn in to tell the truth. We're looking at pictures that seriously challenge every single thing the public has been told regarding Meghan Markle's pregnancies. And when I say every single thing, I really mean it. The information in here turns the whole situation upside down. The carefully shaped version of events, the version that has been presented and accepted by millions across the globe, is starting to collapse completely. Before I dive deeper into any of this, I want you to hit that subscribe button immediately. What I'm about to explain isn't getting proper coverage from other sources. Mainstream outlets are steering clear of it entirely. They have too much invested in shielding her reputation. That's why subscribing matters. This is the place where the complete picture will actually be presented. Okay, let's begin from the start. Just last night, a law firm located in London filed paperwork with the High Court. The matter concerns a disagreement involving ex-royal household employees and another party whose name hasn't been disclosed. The core specifics of the dispute remain under seal for now. However, the filing came with a large number of supporting exhibits, dozens in fact. Among those exhibits are internal communications within the palace, photographic material, health-related records, plus accounts from several people who had direct, close interaction with Meghan throughout both of her pregnancies. I stayed up all night carefully examining every piece of this material, and I have to be honest, it is devastating, completely devastating. Let's begin with the photographs themselves. In total, there are 63 separate images, 63. They were captured across a time frame stretching from November 2018 all the way to April 2019. That period lines up exactly with when Meghan was said to be expecting Archie. Just to be clear, these aren't the kind of shots snapped by paparazzi. These are sharp, high-quality pictures taken by members of the security detail, by domestic staff, by individuals who were physically very close to her, sometimes just a couple of feet away. And what those pictures reveal is honestly troubling on a deep level. In no fewer than 20 of the images, there are obvious discrepancies in how her pregnancy bump looks, both its shape and its overall size. I'm not referring to small, everyday differences that might happen naturally. These are striking changes that appear from one day to the next. Take one specific shot from January 8, 2019, for instance. Meghan was at a private gathering held at Kensington Palace. In that particular picture, her bump sits quite high up on her stomach. It has a distinct rounded form and stands out noticeably. Now compare that to another photo taken just 3 days afterward, on January 11. She's at a different occasion, and the bump looks entirely different. It's sitting much lower. The upper part appears flatter. The curve itself has altered. 3 days. Pause and really consider that for a moment. Over the course of 3 days, a genuine pregnancy simply doesn't transform or reposition in that manner. It doesn't reorganize its own contours. Yet that's precisely what these photographs demonstrate, and the issues don't end there. Several of the pictures actually show visible lines, borders, or edges that shouldn't be present. There's one from February 2019 in which Meghan leans forward just a little, and a clear horizontal line runs across her midsection. It's plainly visible. Then there's another taken during March, where something that looks like the rim of a prosthetic device peeks out above the waistband of her skirt. The detail is faint, but once your eye catches it, it's impossible to ignore afterward. Forensic specialists have studied these photographs. 3 different analysts examined them separately, without consulting each other, and every one of them reached the identical finding: whatever appears in those images does not match the characteristics of a natural pregnancy. Now let me share something directly with you. This comes from an official internal memorandum composed by a high-ranking staff member in the royal household. The date on it is March 15, 2019. I'll read it exactly as written. Quote, "I feel compelled to place on formal record my serious concerns about the Duchess declining to follow routine medical procedures. 3 times already this month, scheduled visits with the royal doctor were abruptly cancelled with no sufficient reason provided. When I raised the matter personally, her private secretary informed me that the Duchess wishes to handle all prenatal care on her own terms privately, and that any additional inquiries would not be appreciated. Such conduct is highly unusual and represents a clear break from normal protocol." End quote. Go back and read those words once more. 3 appointments cancelled without proper justification. followed by an explicit instruction not to pursue the topic further. Why on earth would anyone behave that way? Why would a woman expecting a child, particularly one in such a prominent role, turn down ordinary medical supervision unless there was something she needed to conceal? But there's an aspect here that nobody saw coming. The material also contains text message exchanges, thousands upon thousands of them. These particular messages passed between Meghan and a man identified only by his first name, Daniel. His full identity has been blacked out in the legal papers, yet the substance of what they wrote to each other is explosive. The conversation stretches from October 2017 right up to June 2023. That covers almost 6 full years of ongoing contact, and the tone of those exchanges leaves no room for doubt. I won't quote the most graphic parts here. What I will say is that these weren't casual, platonic conversations. They were deeply personal, affectionate, and at times explicitly sexual in nature. Here's one concrete instance to illustrate the point. On December 23, 2018, Meghan sent this message to the man in question. Quote, "I can't stop thinking about you. I need to see you. This whole thing is suffocating me. I need you." End quote. December 23, only 2 days before Christmas. At that moment, she was supposedly in a happy marriage. She was supposedly carrying Harry's baby. Yet she was sending texts like that to someone else entirely. The response came back the same day. Quote, "I know, I feel the same way. After the holiday, I'll figure it out. I promise," quote, "after the holiday." And do you know what occurred once the holidays passed? On January 3, 2019, Meghan flew to New York. The official explanation from the palace was that she had engagements tied to her patronages. But the records in these files show she met Daniel there. Hotel bookings exist. Credit card transactions are documented. There's even a picture captured in the lobby of the Surrey Hotel in Manhattan. Although Daniel's face is hidden in the shot, Meghan is clearly recognizable. Their closeness is unmistakable. They're standing right next to each other. And that encounter was far from the only one. The files describe at least 12 distinct meetings spread across 3 years in Los Angeles, London, Toronto, New York, Paris. Every single time these get-togethers lined up with trips Meghan made alone without Harry present. Those journeys were always described as professional obligations or private matters. But flight logs and lodging details confirm that Daniel was present in the identical location at the identical time. In certain instances, they even stayed at the same hotels. Let that sink in. The same hotels. Now let's address the money side of things, because the documents contain banking information and records of electronic transfers that reveal a consistent pattern. Funds moved from accounts under Meghan's control into accounts controlled by Daniel. The sums involved a significant $45,000 March 2019, a $60,000 July 2019, to a $38,000 in November 2020, and the transfers kept going. Across more than 3 years, the total exceeded $400,000. What were these payments intended to cover? Whenever a reason appears on the transfer paperwork, it's always extremely vague, things like consulting fees, professional services, advisory support. But no trace exists of any genuine business relationship, no signed contracts, no formal agreements. No deliverables or evidence of actual services rendered. Nothing that could reasonably account for payments at that scale. So what was the true purpose? You can draw your own conclusion. Let's shift to the second pregnancy, because if the first one prompted serious doubts, this one raises even larger red flags. Meghan publicly revealed she was expecting her second child in February 2021, and the birth was announced on June 4 that year. But here's what these files disclose. Back in January 2021, someone acting as an intermediary for Meghan contacted a physician practicing in Los Angeles. The doctor's qualifications are verified in the legal submissions, and their sworn testimony states that they were requested to produce retroactive medical paperwork that would confirm a pregnancy. Let me repeat that clearly. Paperwork dated in the past for a pregnancy the physician had never examined or overseen. According to the doctor's account, they declined the request. After the refusal, an offer of $200,000 was made, $200,000 to fabricate official medical documents. The doctor turned that down as well. Not long afterward, they received a formal legal warning from Meghan's lawyers, stating that revealing the contact to anyone would trigger swift legal repercussions. That warning letter is part of the file. It's included right here, and it plainly threatens immediate action if the matter is discussed. The revelations don't end with that. Photographs from the second pregnancy are also in the documents. And once again, the discrepancies stand out sharply. Pictures from March 2021 show the bump looking unusually large relative to her body size. Then images from April make it appear noticeably smaller. By May, the placement has changed yet again. One especially telling photo comes from late May. Meghan is seated, and there's what looks like a fold or wrinkle in whatever is creating the bump shape, clearly visible just above her waist. Several forensic professionals have analyzed that particular image, and their assessments align completely. The visible structure is not organic human tissue. Now let's discuss the travel records, because this is where the overall pattern becomes impossible to ignore. While she was supposedly pregnant the second time, Meghan took 7 separate trips to California. 7? None of those journeys were mentioned publicly. They don't show up on any official itinerary. The press never reported them. Yet the private jet flight manifests are included in these files. And on 5 out of those 7 occasions, Daniel was also in California on the exact same dates. Twice, the records indicate he traveled on the identical aircraft with her, while she was presented to the world as pregnant with Harry's child. Where did she stay on those visits? The documents point to a private residence in Montecito, a property held through a Delaware-registered shell company. When people tried to follow the ownership trail of that entity, they ran into multiple layers of holding companies and offshore structures, clearly designed to conceal who truly controlled it. What did surface, however, was that Daniel appears as an authorized user of the estate. He had permission to enter, he possessed keys, he visited on multiple occasions. Consider that again. Meghan was making covert trips to California, staying in a place where the man described as her lover had unrestricted access. All of this while she was expecting a child, while married, while portraying herself publicly as a committed spouse and parent. But the element that disturbs me the most comes from testimony provided by a former member of Meghan's personal security detail. This person served in that role from late 2020 into early 2022 and described several instances where Meghan explicitly directed them to mislead Harry regarding her location. On at least 6 separate occasions, the Duchess personally instructed me to supply Mr. Markle, meaning Harry, with inaccurate details concerning her position and what she was doing. I was initially told this was necessary for security purposes, but as time went on it became evident that the actual reason was to hide meetings with a person known to me only as D. End quote. That statement was made under oath. These are notes recorded at the time by someone who experienced it directly. What this describes is a deliberate, repeated effort to deceive. Meghan consistently provided Harry with false information about her whereabouts, her companions, and her activities. Now let's address the births directly, because here's a critical point: neither one has any independent confirmation whatsoever. None. When Archie was born, the palace stated that Meghan delivered at Portland Hospital in London. Yet no public documentation exists showing her admission. No record shows her release. The hospital itself has never provided any confirmation. The entire process was handled privately and tightly controlled. The exact same pattern repeated with the second child. No hospital acknowledgement, no separate medical validation, only statements released through Meghan's own representatives. Why the complete lack of openness? If these were ordinary, uncomplicated deliveries, why was everything shrouded in secrecy? Why were normal procedures bypassed? You really have to consider that question seriously. The obvious conclusion is that something required concealment. Let me lay out the chronology once more so you can see how everything links together. Toward the end of 2017, Meghan started a relationship with Daniel. In 2018, she wed Harry and very soon afterward announced she was pregnant. During that pregnancy, photographs captured physical irregularities. Medical visits were cancelled without good cause. Secret rendezvous with Daniel took place. In May 2019, Archie was supposedly born, but no outside confirmation ever surfaced. Then in 2021 came the announcement of another pregnancy, again with visible physical discrepancies, again with hidden travel to California, again with meetings involving Daniel, again with large monetary transfers. In June 2021, another birth was announced, yet again without any independent verification. Through all of this, she has presented herself as someone who suffered mistreatment. She has spoken publicly about the hardships she endured within the royal family. She has appeared emotional on camera describing her struggles. She has constructed an entire identity based on endurance and overcoming adversity. But these documents paint a very different reality, one involving calculated manipulation, dishonesty, and disloyalty. If this involved any other public figure, a politician, a corporate executive, anyone in the spotlight, the fallout would be immediate and severe. Headlines would dominate for months. Inquiries would launch. Legal consequences would follow. But because the person in question is Meghan Markle, and because influential figures in media and entertainment circles shield her, there's reluctance. There's hesitation to examine the facts thoroughly. And that's precisely why this issue carries such weight. This isn't merely about a single piece of paper, or one questionable image, or one troubling text. This concerns a sustained pattern of conduct. This concerns years of falsehoods. This concerns an individual who has skillfully influenced those around her to gain financial benefit, elevated position, and influence. The proof is extensive and compelling. You have to wonder why anyone would pursue such an elaborate course of action. I believe the explanation is straightforward. She believed she could get away with it. She understood that many people wanted to accept her narrative. She recognized that by framing herself as persecuted and victimized, a portion of the public would automatically support her without digging deeper. And for a long time, that strategy succeeded. But the reality is now emerging, and it's far more troubling than most people anticipated. The consequences stretching into the future are serious. We're potentially looking at courtroom proceedings. We're looking at disputes over custody. We're looking at financial resolutions. We're looking at the total unraveling of Meghan's carefully built public persona. And what about Harry? If even a portion of this material holds up, he has been deceived on a profound level. He has spent years defending a person who was betraying him almost from the outset. He stepped away from his family, his homeland, his duties, all for someone who missold him continuously. That, to me, represents the genuine heartbreak, not Meghan's inevitable fall from grace. The true loss is the harm inflicted on everyone she involved, the individuals who placed trust in her, the ones who stood up for her, the ones whose worlds were disrupted by her fabrications. So where do we go from here? The choice belongs to all of us. Traditional media won't handle this story fairly. They'll minimize its importance. They'll cast doubt on the legitimacy of these records despite their inclusion in formal court submissions. They'll continue safeguarding Meghan as they always have. But we aren't obligated to go along with that approach. We can insist on clarity. We can circulate this information. We can refuse to allow it to be suppressed. This issue is significant. It matters because truth itself matters. It matters because no one should be permitted to distort facts and avoid responsibility. It matters because if Meghan succeeds in carrying out deception of this magnitude without consequence, what does that imply for the rest of society? What does it say about holding people accountable? Thank you for staying with me through this. Please subscribe if you haven't already, share what you've heard, and remain attentive. Don't allow anyone to convince you this is trivial. Don't let anyone brush it off as mere rumor or guesswork. These are official records. These are photographs. These are sworn statements. This is concrete evidence demonstrating that Meghan Markle has missold the public for years. That carries real weight. It carries more weight than many realize. So pass this along. Discuss it openly. Keep pressing for honest answers to the questions raised.